In 1977, a sinister mystery took hold of Chicago. Teresita Basa, an ordinary woman, was found dead in her apartment, leaving the police with no leads. But when all seemed lost, something inexplicable happened. Teresita, in some way, would end up helping to solve her own murder. Get ready to dive into this case that defies logic and takes us beyond the physical world. In February of 1977, the city of Chicago faced a mystery that would defy rational explanations. Teresita Basa, a dedicated and respected respiratory therapist, was found dead in her apartment. What began as an apparently unsolvable case would soon take an unexpected and inexplicable turn involving the supernatural. Teresita, a Filipino immigrant, was known for her kindness and quiet profile. She worked at Edgewater Hospital and led a peaceful life, with no signs of trouble in her personal affairs. Everything changed one night in February when neighbors noticed something strange coming from her apartment. Upon entering, authorities found the place in flames, which they quickly brought under control. However, what seemed like just a fire revealed a much larger mystery. The circumstances surrounding Teresita's death raised many questions, but no clear answers emerged in the initial investigations. There were no signs of forced entry, and few clues were available for the police to follow. With no witnesses or concrete evidence, the case began to grow cold. But what would make this crime so different from others was about to happen. A surprising revelation would come from where no one expected. A coworker of Teresita began to report strange and supernatural events that would change the course of the investigation, bringing hidden truths to light. A crime without answers would gain an unexpected conclusion. Before her name became associated with one of Chicago's most mysterious cases, Teresita Basa was known as a hard-working and respected woman, someone who dedicated her life to helping others. Born in the Philippines, Teresita emigrated to the United States in search of better opportunities, like many of her fellow countrymen at the time. She settled in Chicago and began working as a respiratory therapist at Edgewater Hospital, a career that reflected her gentle nature and her desire to care for people. At the hospital, Teresita was well regarded by her colleagues. Though reserved, those who knew her spoke of her kindness and dedication to her work. She was a reliable employee and easily made friends, despite her quiet demeanor. Outside of work, her life was equally simple and peaceful. Teresita didn't engage in large social events, preferring to spend time at home or engaging in quieter activities. Besides her work, Teresita had a great love for music. She was passionate about the piano and often spoke about her lessons, in which she taught young people to play. The piano was a kind of refuge for her, something that connected her both to her roots and to her personal and intimate identity. Music, for Teresita, was a form of expression that brought her peace and joy. Her life in Chicago may have been quiet, but to her friends and family, she was someone to be proud of. Although her routine seemed ordinary, her story was about to take a dark and unexpected turn. No one could have predicted that this calm and kind woman would be tragically remembered for such a terrible event. Until that fateful day, her life was a testament to determination and resilience, qualities that marked her journey from the Philippines to the United States. In summary, Teresita was someone whose life seemed simple at first glance, but who carried an emotional depth that many who knew her admired. Her tragic and sudden death shocked everyone around her, making the mystery surrounding her murder even more disturbing. However, as we will see ahead, Teresita's life was not forgotten. On the contrary, her story would take on a supernatural dimension that would cause her name to resonate for a long time. With this background established, we can now dive into the mystery that would surround her death, where Teresita Basa's peaceful life was abruptly interrupted, but her voice somehow continued to be heard. On February 21st, 1977, Teresita Basa's quiet daily life came to a tragic and mysterious end. That night, Teresita's neighbors began to smell strong smoke coming from her apartment. Worried about the possibility of a fire, they called the fire department, who quickly arrived at the scene. After controlling the flames, they encountered a scene that initially seemed like an accident, but soon realized that there was much more to the story. The firefighters entered the apartment and found Teresita's body in conditions that did not match a simple accidental fire. The situation immediately raised suspicions that something more sinister had occurred. The police were called to the scene, and what seemed like a tragic incident turned out to be a brutal and unprecedented crime. Teresita's body was found in the bedroom, and investigators soon noticed signs that she had been attacked before the fire started. Despite an initial analysis of the scene, authorities were faced with a great mystery. Teresita's apartment showed no clear signs of forced entry, and there were no direct witnesses to the crime. This complicated the investigation, as there was no obvious trail to follow. The police began interviewing Teresita's friends, neighbors, and coworkers in hopes of discovering any information that might clarify what happened on the night of her death. However, all reported that Teresita had no enemies and was known for her calm and peaceful nature. As the days passed, the investigation began to cool. The police couldn't find any significant clues that could lead to the culprit. There were no eyewitnesses, and the absence of concrete evidence made the case even more complicated. Investigators began to wonder if Teresita's crime would remain unsolved. Like many other mysteries that, over the years, defy logic and justice, the case seemed to be heading toward oblivion when a new element emerged and would completely change the course of the investigation. This element was not a new physical piece of evidence or an unexpected witness. In fact, it was something much stranger and more unusual. Someone began to report strange occurrences, and these reports were directly linked to the spirit of Teresita. One of the most bizarre details of this case is that, even after her death, Teresita seemed determined to help solve the mystery of her own murder. The police, who previously had no direction to follow, were about to be guided to a revelation that no one could have predicted. A series of supernatural events was about to transform this case from an apparently unsolvable crime into one of the most intriguing stories in Chicago's criminal history. With the mystery of her death still unresolved, Teresita Basa's fate was about to intertwine with something that transcends the physical world. Her life was abruptly and tragically cut short, but the mystery of her death would open the door to events even more inexplicable and dark. As the weeks passed, the murder of Teresita Basa began to fade from the media spotlight and lose traction among investigators. What initially seemed like a shocking case quickly turned into an investigation without direction. Authorities continued to examine the crime scene, interview Teresita's acquaintances, and pursue possible leads. But all these attempts ultimately led nowhere. With no new leads or conclusive evidence, the case went cold. Investigators faced a significant barrier. There were no obvious suspects, and the crime scene lacked clear evidence that could directly link anyone to the murder. The absence of witnesses and the lack of information about any possible motive left the police frustrated. With no signs of forced entry and no valuable items missing, they couldn't even determine a clear motive for the crime. Over time, Teresita's case began to be considered an unsolved mystery, something that happened more often than people cared to admit. Investigation resources were redirected to more urgent cases, and Teresita's death was slowly relegated to obscurity. However, this mystery was far from over. The answer to what really happened that night would come in a way no one could have imagined. Something extraordinary was about to occur, and the case, which seemed lost forever, would take an unexpected turn, involving a connection to the spiritual world. While the case of Teresita Basa appeared to be heading toward becoming one of Chicago's many unsolved mysteries, something extraordinary began to happen. An unexpected individual would be responsible for bringing a dramatic twist to the case. Remy Chua, a co-worker of Teresita at the hospital, began to report inexplicable events connected to the spirit of Teresita herself. Remy Chua and Teresita weren't exactly close friends, but they knew each other from working at the same hospital. It all started when Remy told her family she was having strange and unsettling dreams about Teresita. In these dreams, Teresita seemed to be trying to communicate with her, asking for help in some way. However, what began as simple dreams soon became far more frightening. On one occasion, while at home, Remy unexpectedly fell into a trance. Her husband, who was beside her, was startled when Remy, without warning, began speaking in a different voice, a voice that didn't sound like her own. According to reports, she claimed to be possessed by Teresita's spirit and, with this voice, began revealing shocking details about the murder. Remy, under this supposed spiritual influence, spoke directly to her husband, explaining that she knew who was responsible for the crime. The identity of the killer, as revealed by Remy, was Alan Showery, a maintenance technician who also worked at the hospital where Teresita was employed. She claimed that Showery had visited Teresita's apartment under the pretense of helping with a repair, but his intentions were far more sinister. Most strikingly, Remy, still in a trance, described items that had been taken from Teresita's apartment, including some jewelry, and said that these items were now in Showery's girlfriend's possession. At first, the police were skeptical of the information. A revelation obtained in such an unusual manner, through what appeared to be a spiritual manifestation, was not something they were used to dealing with. However, with the case at a dead end, the investigators decided to follow this new lead and investigate Alan Showery. What they discovered was astonishing. When they confronted Showery and searched his apartment, the police found the items Remy had described while in her trance. The jewelry that Teresita had mentioned was indeed in the possession of Showery's girlfriend, just as the supposed spiritual manifestation had indicated. This was enough for the police to gather evidence and arrest Showery. Faced with the pressure of the evidence and the investigation, Alan Showery eventually confessed to Teresita's murder. He admitted to going to her apartment with the intention of stealing valuables, and when the situation spiraled out of control, he ended up committing the crime. Showery tried to cover his tracks by setting the apartment on fire, but the revelation from such an unexpected source led to his capture. The case of Teresita Basa, which seemed destined to remain unsolved, was ultimately cracked thanks to an intervention that defied conventional understanding at the time. Many skeptics questioned the story, preferring to believe in coincidences or that Remy Chua had some prior knowledge. However, the resolution of the case was an inexplicable combination of supernatural events and police investigation. This twist in the case, involving communication from a supposed spirit, turned what was initially just a mystery into one of the most intriguing and inexplicable stories ever recorded in Chicago's criminal history. With the supernatural revelation pointing to Alan Showery as the prime suspect, the police decided to dig deeper. Although skeptical about the nature of the tip, the detectives knew they had to explore all possibilities, given that the case had made no progress until that point. The first step was to interrogate Alan Showery. During the initial questioning, he denied any involvement in the crime. However, as the investigation progressed, the police decided to follow the leads provided by Remy Chua during her trance. The detailed description of Teresita's jewelry and the claim that Showery had given these items to his girlfriend were intriguing enough to be checked out. When investigators confronted Showery again and later searched his apartment, they found the items mentioned by Remy, confirming part of the supernatural revelation. These concrete pieces of evidence linked to the crime were essential for detectives to press Showery further. Moreover, the deeper investigation revealed that Showery had indeed visited Teresita's apartment on that fateful night, placing him at the crime scene. The contradictions in his testimony, combined with the recovered physical evidence, began to build the case against him. Under pressure from the mounting evidence, Alan Showery eventually admitted to his involvement in the crime. He confessed that he had gone to Teresita's apartment intending to rob her, and the situation escalated, leading to the attack. The discovery of the stolen items and Showery's confession brought the investigation to its critical conclusion. What had begun as an apparently unsolvable mystery became one of the most fascinating cases involving a supposed communication from beyond the grave. Although many remained skeptical about the spiritual intervention, the fact remained that the supernatural information played a vital role in solving Teresita Basa's murder. With the accumulated evidence and growing pressure from investigators, Alan Showery finally broke down and confessed to his role in Teresita Basa's murder. During questioning, Showery revealed that he had gone to Teresita's apartment that night with the intention of stealing valuable items. He knew she owned some pieces that he could sell and confronted her with this goal in mind. Showery's confession provided crucial details about what happened that night. He admitted that while trying to carry out the robbery, things spiraled out of control, leading to Teresita's death. In a desperate attempt to cover up his actions, Showery resorted to extreme measures to hide the crime, but he couldn't erase all the evidence. What he could never have predicted was that his arrest would come from an entirely unexpected source. Showery also admitted to taking the jewelry mentioned by Remy Chua during her trance and gifting them to his girlfriend. These pieces, recovered by the police, became the final link connecting Showery to the crime, solidifying his confession and wrapping up the investigation. With the confession and material evidence in hand, the authorities considered the case closed. The fact that Showery's confession aligned with the revelations made through a spiritual channel left many perplexed. For the police, what initially seemed like an unsolvable crime was cracked wide open thanks to a series of events that defied logic and traditional investigative methods. The case of Teresita Basa left a profound mark on both the justice system and public perception of the unexplainable. Teresita Basa's case not only shocked the Chicago community, but also sparked broader discussions about the role of the supernatural in criminal investigations. The resolution of the murder, which was based on a supposed communication from beyond, raised questions among skeptics and believers alike. For some, the case was indisputable proof that there are forces beyond our understanding. For others, it was seen as a great coincidence shrouded in myth and superstition. The media at the time covered the case extensively, highlighting the supernatural aspect of its resolution. While Alan Showery's confession and the physical evidence were enough to close the case, the involvement of a spirit as a crucial element fascinated the public. This led to debates about the extent to which paranormal phenomena could be considered in legal processes, especially during an era of scientific and technological advances. The impact of this case was also felt culturally. The story of Teresita Basa became a reference in television shows and books that explored the supernatural side of real-life crimes. The case has been cited numerous times in discussions about the fine line between science and spirituality, as well as the use of unconventional methods to solve criminal mysteries. Regardless of how it is interpreted, the case of Teresita Basa continues to intrigue the public to this day. Many still wonder if its resolution was purely a matter of coincidence or if unknown forces truly intervened to bring justice. Either way, Teresita's story has become a symbol of mystery and a challenge to rational explanations, living on in the popular imagination. The case of Teresita Basa remains, to this day, one of the most intriguing in criminal history. While Alan Showery's confession provided the necessary closure to the investigation, the role played by the supposed spiritual contact continues to spark doubts and debates. For many, it is difficult to accept that a supernatural revelation could have been instrumental in solving a crime. Others, however, believe that there are forces beyond our understanding that, from time to time, manifest in moments of desperation. Teresita Basa's story leaves an open question. Was it an extraordinary coincidence, or was something much greater at play? This enigma is what keeps the case alive in people's minds, particularly those fascinated by the unexplainable. The way the investigation unfolded shows that, in some cases, the truth can come from the most unexpected places. Regardless of the answer, Teresita's legacy serves as a reminder that the pursuit of justice can take mysterious paths. Her voice, in one way or another, was heard and brought the truth to light.